Anytime, anywhere education. Whichcollege.co.
A hand-carved natural quartz crystal ball made into a necklace for divination on the go. Crystal balls have been used for centuries in healing and cleansing rituals, as well as for divination. The sphere represents infinity and the circle of life. While a wand uses focused energy, the crystal ball sends out energy in all directions. This makes it a great resource for discovering the complete circumstances surrounding a question.
Greetings, fellow seekers of the arcane. Welcome to Jedite's Pagan Vlog, where the veil between the worlds is thin and the energies of the universe converge. I'm your host, Reverend Jedite, and today I'd like to illuminate you on the intricacies of casting a ritual circle. So what is a magic circle? A magic circle, also referred to as a ritual circle or the sacred circle, is a fundamental concept in various magical traditions, including Wicca and in ceremonial magic. It is a consecrated space created by practitioners to perform magical workings, to perform rituals and ceremonies. The circle acts as a boundary separating the mundane world from the sacred, providing protection and amplifying the energy raised during rituals. Sorry. Fix my notes here. The circle is typically cast using ritual tools, gestures, or spoken words, depending on your style, while drawing upon the practitioner's intention and their energy. It symbolizes the infinite unity. It symbolizes the infinite unity and the cyclical nature of life. Within the circle, magical practitioners commune with deities, spirits, or natural forces, while harnessing their energies to manifest intentions, perform divination, or celebrate seasonal events. The circle also represents the interconnectedness of all living things, emphasizing harmony and balance. When the magical work is complete, the circle is released, or some people refer to it as closed, often by reversing the casting process. This act allows the energies raised within the circle to be released into the universe to manifest the intended goals. The magic circle serves as a sacred space where the spiritual and mundane worlds merge, enabling practitioners to tap into the unseen forces that govern our universe. So how do you do it? Well, before we cast the circle, we prep our working space. This means that we physically clean anything that's in the way, gather any materials we need for our ritual, and set up the altar. I've already discussed setting up the altar in the altars and self-initiation episode. So when we are ready to begin our ritual, we start by casting the circle. First, you cleanse the space. There are several ways to do this. I use a broom and sweep the negative energies away, usually while chanting the phrase, "I cleanse the space," over and over again. You could also use holy water and sprinkle the edge of the circle, or you could use incense. Once you've done that, you are ready to call the quarters. The quarters, also known as the eights, are called in a clockwise order around the circle, beginning at the east. And when you close the circle, they are dismissed last in an anti-clockwise direction, starting at the north. When you are performing the quarter call, there's usually 5 things that you want to do in it. You wish to address the spirit being invoked by its name, such as the guardian of the element of air, or the watchtower of the east, or the watchtower of the air, or something to that effect. You'll praise the spirit. You will mention its qualities. You will then request its presence. And this is important to be polite. You'll say something like, "I ask you to join this ritual and share your powers." You're not demanding it, you are not ordering it, you are politely inviting it. And then you welcome it to your circle. The traditional way is with the phrase, "Hail and welcome." When it comes to mentioning the qualities and praising the spirit, the best way to know what you're doing would be to look up the correspondences for the for the element, which I do have listed in the appropriate section on my online Book of Shadows at wiccan.pw. So if we were going with our example from earlier, we would invite the guardian of the element of air, which addresses it by name, the spirit of the early dawn and springtime, praising the spirit, the source of inspiration, that is while praising it, that also mentions its qualities. I ask you to join this ritual and share your powers, requesting his presence. Hail and welcome. When you wish to close the quarter at the end of the ritual, it's going to be very much the same thing. You'll address the spirit again by name, usually the same name that you used to welcome it or invoke it at the beginning. So if you called it the guardian of the element of air at the beginning, you should call it the guardian of the element of air at the closing. You'll then thank the element, again back at the closing. We thank you for joining our ritual and sharing your powers. This is a perfectly good way to say it. You will then give a statement reflecting, again, the qualities of the element. Such as mentioning the winds of change, bringing healing, or something to that effect, depending on... And obviously you'll customize it to whichever element you're addressing. And then, okay, this next part, I will admit there's two different ways to do it. The common way, then as the next step, would be to give it the option to stay or to leave. People who go with this generally will tell you it's rude to just tell the element to go. So some will use a phrase similar to something along the lines of, go if you wish, stay if you wish, or go if you must, stay if you wish, something to that effect. That said, I do know some people, myself included, who would rather politely but firmly ask the element to leave because they wish to control the energies to a greater degree in their sacred space. So they generally don't give the option to stay. The phrase I was taught and that I use at this point would be to ask the element to go in peace and to go in power. Again, not really giving an option for it to stay. And then you'll give a final farewell. We bid you hail and farewell is a very traditional way to say it. Once you call the quarters, you will then call the goddess and the god. At the closing of the circle at the end, you'll dismiss the god and then the goddess before you close the quarters. After invoking the goddess and the god, if you wish to invoke your ancestors or any particular ancestor spirits, maybe not necessarily yours, that's when you would do so. And at that point, you will have a circle successfully opened. So, just to go back over all of it one more time, what you would do is you would clean the space. You would then invoke the elements, starting in the east with air, moving to the south with fire, to the west with water, and to the north with earth. You would, when you're addressing them, each of the elements, you'd address it by name, you would praise the spirits, you'd mention its qualities, you'd request its presence in your circle, and then you would welcome it. You would then invoke the goddess, then the god, and then any ancestors or other spirits you wish to invite. And then you'd perform your ritual, and then at the end, you would effectively reverse the process. You would dismiss your the other spirits and the ancestors. You would dismiss the god, then the goddess. Notice how it's backwards from the beginning. You would then close the quarters in the opposite order. So you would do, you'd close starting in the north with earth, west with water, south with fire, and then ending at the east with air. When you close the quarters, you will address the spirit again by name. You'll thank them for joining your rituals and sharing in your powers and providing theirs. You will again reflect upon their qualities of the element. You will either give them the option to stay or leave, or you will politely ask them to leave until next time. And then you'll bid them a final farewell. Once you have done that, you will then, usually there will be a statement made by whoever's running the ritual at the end, just to indicate that this is the end of the ritual. The one I use will what is the one that I use? Oh, wow, I'm drawing a complete blank all of a sudden. Yeah, you'll just give a brief sentence statement, just indicating this is the end of it. Merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. That's usually the one people use. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, and then at that point, some will also ring a closing bell or something again, just to indicate this is the end of the ritual. And then usually there will be another cleansing of the space, just to remove any excess energy that's been built up. Some people also meditate and center and ground to release their own extra energies that they have raised and didn't use during the ritual. But yeah, that is pretty much the basics of how a ritual works, or at least the opening and closing of the circle itself. And if you take that along with what I've covered in episodes 5, 6, 7, 8, 30, and an episode that was titled Altars and Self-Dedication, that's from when I was still doing season numbers, so I think it's labeled Season 2, Episode 5. But at that point, you should actually have a good understanding of how the ritual works as a whole. How you set up your altar, what your tools would be. Now you see how you cast your circle. You'll then perform the ritual, which I can't really give you a one-size-fits-all definition of how the ritual's done because everyone's a bit different. Then you'll close the circle and move on. If you would like to see an idea of how rituals work, go to our website, wiccan.pw, look under SBOTs and look at there are full moon and new moon rituals for most of the months of the year. And I'm always adding to them. And if you look in the section for individual holidays, you'll find a few of the that's the holidays for the Wheel of the Year. You'll find some rituals there too. And they'll at least give you an idea of the flow of how a whole ritual works. And later on, I will actually go through a whole ritual to show you how it's done. But at least at this point, and it's the intent of this video this video series is to give you at least an idea. These videos are never meant to be 100%. This is a complete class. Like everything in Wicca, this is I'm giving you the concepts, I'm giving you the ideas, and it's your turn now to go out and do the research and figure out what works for you. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for joining us here today at Jedite's Pagan Vlog. I've got some new concepts of how I'm going to do these videos, so there is changes coming to these channels. I'm hoping to make this show a bit better. But we'll see where it's going. I think it's going to be awesome, though. But until next time, I appreciate you joining us, or joining me. I hope you take care. Feel free, if you want to learn more about anything, check out my other videos on YouTube under the channel called The Temple of the Starry Sky, or on my pagan vlog at wiccan.pw. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and may you blessed be. Hello and welcome to Jedite's Pagan Vlog. I'm your host, Reverend Jedite, and today I'd like to discuss mistakes that most, or at least many, new witches make. I actually started working on this list a couple weeks ago, and then I decided to go on Facebook and ask in a couple of the pagan groups that I follow there, and some of the witchcraft groups I follow there, what are the common mistakes they see people make. So I came up with this list, partly on my own, partly thanks to them, so thank you, people. You know who you are. And I want to go over this list. I'm not going to go into any great deal of depth on any of these, but I at least want to give my brief thoughts on these individual items. So this is the mistakes that most new witches make. The first one, and I think this is the most important, I don't want to say this. Oh, the first one is that you can't do enough research. Read everything you can and then read some more. When you are practicing Wicca or one of many other pagan religions, or when you're practicing witchcraft or another magical system, you're going to be doing a lot of research on your own. There are places that will offer to teach you, Gray School, Witch School. There are some formalized organizations like Cherry Hill Seminary, things like that. And they will certainly teach you, but you're still going to be doing a lot of the research on your own. And even once you finish any kind of formal training that your tradition has, you're still going to be studying. As long as you are on this path, you will be a student. Even like people like some of the well-known, long-time members of this community, like Oberon Zale or Lon Milo Ducat, or anyone like that, they're still learning. They've been in the the magical community for decades, still learning. And tying in with that, the next mistake that I would say a lot of witches make is not studying enough before you just start looking up spells. It's real tempting if you're just starting out to want to get to the flashy, exciting stuff and start wanting to do spells or what have you, and just looking them up on Google. And you can, and you could perform them, and they may work for you. But understanding why you're doing them or why you do them a certain way is fundamental knowledge to performing them well and having them work very well for you. Assume that you're going to be doing a bunch of boring research, or what you may consider boring research first before you get to the exciting stuff. I had a student a while back that the first thing I did is send him an article of just what is Wicca, what is witchcraft, and they found it boring. They weren't interested in it, and they were asking me why. And it's part of it simply so you understand what we're doing, and so that we're all on the same page. Is it exciting? No. Is it necessary and fundamental? Absolutely. The next mistake that a lot of witches make is assuming that witchcraft and Wicca are the same thing. And they are not. And these terms, not only are they not the same thing, these terms are not interchangeable. Some people do use them interchangeably, but you shouldn't. Wicca is a religion. It has a particular set of deities that it draws upon. It has certain religious traditions and ways of practicing one's religion. Witchcraft is a magical tradition, which would be a system of performing magic. Now, Wicca is very open to witchcraft, and most people who practice Wicca do practice witchcraft, but not all people who practice Wicca practice witchcraft, and not all witches are also Wiccan. So if you're talking the religion, it's Wicca. If you're talking magic, it's witchcraft. And not even all forms of magic would be called witchcraft. If you're looking at, let's say, the magical system used by the Golden Dawn, you would not generally refer to that as witchcraft, is my understanding, because they don't refer to it as such. It is a different system. When you look at Thelema, my understanding is that Thelema is both a magical system and a religion, I guess. I'm not expert on it because I'm not a Thelmite. But again, you probably would not call it witchcraft. The next mistake would be to assume that all witches abide by the Rede. In this case, the Rede is the Wiccan Rede, and a harm none, do as ye will. Don't assume that all witches follow this, because, again, touching on the last point, not all witches are Wiccans, and not all Wiccans follow the Rede either. Different religions and different magical traditions do have their own basic code of ethics or code of conduct. Yes, code of ethics would probably be the best. Wicca, the most common one used in Wicca would be the Rede, but again, it's not a universal thing. And the next mistake tying into that is preaching the rules to others. I see a lot of beginners, especially, who they've now discovered the Rede, and they're trying to call people out for not following it. Again, not everyone follows it, because either they're not Wiccans or they don't belong to a branch of Wicca that follows it. So don't preach the rules to them. They probably know their system better than you do. Especially if you're new. Again, this is a list meant for new practitioners. Another mistake that people make, and I think this one's becoming a bigger issue, is believing what you see on Witch Talk, which would be, the TikTok channels for focusing on witchcraft, or even on YouTube. I'm gonna lump them together, witchcraft, or YouTube and TikTok, and Instagram together. Can you learn valuable things on those platforms? Yes. Is there a lot of crap on those platforms that is incorrect, misleading, or it's labeled as being witchcraft or Wicca when it really belongs to another system and is irrelevant? Yeah. Is there a lot of people there trying to help you genuinely learn? Yes. Are there some people who don't actually care if you're looking to learn and they're just there for the views and hopefully to make a buck? Absolutely. So while those are valuable platforms, anything you see there, take with a grain of salt and try to verify it somewhere else. But this again goes back to my very first point, you can't do enough research. I'm thinking of seeing things on the screen, the next point, and I think this really, I don't think this is as big of a problem as it used to be, but I could be wrong. And that's, in reality, magic and witchcraft can be boring. You do a big money spell, and then you're done. It takes time for it to happen. You're not going to just open your front door and boom, there's a big bag of money. Don't get reality and TV confused. What you see in the movies, what you see on Harry Potter or whatever one of those TV shows. I want to say Supernatural, but I don't know. I assume there's witchcraft in that. I've actually never seen it. I saw one episode of Supernatural. There was a jump scare and I noped the fuck out. Forgive my language. It's not as flashy as it looks on TV. But it's not supposed to be. This is a spiritual path for personal enlightenment. The cool stuff will come, just not how it looks on TV. The next mistake that I've got on my list here, that many new witches make is buying without knowing what you need. I'm gonna mention the next one on the list too because they kind of tie together, and that's trying to buy your craft from scammers online offering instant witchcraft. And I should have grabbed my book. Okay. If you buy a new book, let's say you're brand new to this, you go to the bookstore and you buy one of the big books. Big ones that come to mind would be most anything that says Silver Ravenwolf on it, or one I've always mentioned, the Grimoire for the Apprentice Wizard by Oberon Zale, or any of them. And please do not take this as me hating on any of those authors. They are good authors. And you open it up and you're reading, okay, here's a list of altar tools. And then they go to the store and they buy all these tools. Because you need these tools to be a witch. And you don't need tools. Let me tell you a secret. You don't need tools to do witchcraft. And even if you do want to have tools, if you cannot answer the simple question without having to reference a book, what is the tool used for? You're probably not ready for that tool yet. I have a friend, I had a friend, I lost contact with him years ago, in college who wanted to learn witchcraft, so they went to the pagan store in our town. There was pretty much only the one, and they bought, they asked the person who worked there, what do I need? $1,000 later, they had bags of tools and candles and incense and books, and they had no idea what they were doing. This was literally day one. You don't need to buy tools day one. And so hold off on them until you need them and you understand why you need them. And you'll also get to a point in your practice if you stay on this path long enough where you'll realize you don't need tools at all. Magic, the actual force that powers magic, is your intent. It comes from inside of you. And the trappings, the tools, and the altar, and the tools, and the incense, and the candles, and the fancy robes, and the chanting, or drumming, or whatever you do, all of those trappings are not necessary to perform magic. All they do is they're helping the mind and the parts of the subconscious that power that your intent shapes and uses to produce the magic. They're just getting that all tuned in. Can they help with magic? Yes. If you're doing a money spell, burning a candle may get that part of your mind into the right spot. Burning a green candle, that green being associated with money, can add extra power to your spell, but you can still skip it. And that's true with every single tool. Now, there are some magical traditions where this is not true, especially when you get into traditions that would be considered ceremonial magic. They do like their tools, and I'm not bad mouthing them in any way. I started as a ceremonialist, and from time to time, when I feel my path needing to shift styles, I go back to ceremonial magic for a while, then I shift to something else, then I go back to ceremonial. Ceremonial can be a harder one to learn, but I also do find it a very rewarding one. But that's me. But at the end of the day, the tools are they're just tools. They are not required. They just help the parts of your subconscious, your soul, the part that the intention shapes to produce the magic. It just tunes everything in. And as I said, the second part of this is don't buy your craft from scammers online. They don't have your best interest in mind. And if you're around for a while on enough Facebook groups or whatever, you'll find them. One I've been seeing lately on Facebook, and I've been seeing this pop up. It's been popping up for a long time, but I've been seeing it getting worse lately, is they'll be like, I feel like doing some readings for A select number of people say yes if you want to read, and then you say yes. They tell you to message you. They'll be like, I have received a message from the other side. You're cursed. You need a cleansing. Send me some money. That's a scam. And it's one I see literally 20 times a day. I wish I was kidding. I see it all the time. I'm a millennial. I'm on Facebook a lot. I don't actually use TikTok. I have one, but I don't use it. Facebook's my go-to social media, and the groups I see, I report them all the time, and it's at least 20 a day. They don't have your best intents in mind. All they have in mind is your money, and your money in their pocket. And there's no such thing as instant witchcraft. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes you. If you're going to do witchcraft, you do it. You can't outsource it to somebody else. But let's move on. Another mistake that new witches make, and I know I've ranted about this one before on another show. I think on more than one video early on, like one of the first couple, and it was a terrible video. It does make me cringe, but I'm going to hit this point again. I'm going to actually hit 2 points here. For the love of the goddess, please do not call yourself a baby witch. You can be a new witch. You can be a new practitioner. Please do not call yourself a baby witch. Unless you are a legitimate baby that's like a couple of months old, and then what are you doing on the internet? You're not a baby. You are new. You may be a young adult, you may be an adult, you may be a teen. You're not a baby. You're just a new practitioner. And some people think the term is perfectly fine. If you're one of those, you and I will disagree on this point. But we are allowed to. But I do find more and more people are considering the term to be derogatory. And they don't want to certainly be referred to it that way, and they don't want to see other people put themselves down by referring to themselves as a baby. Just acknowledge you're new. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not the cool, in vogue term that people are using, but I hope it dies as a term. And speaking of things to call yourself, witches, and I know this is another one I've rallied against, and I will admit my opinion on this has changed a little, to a degree. And this is picking a type of witchcraft. What do I mean? How I and how a lot of other people think you should... Excuse me, allergies are killing me today. When you learn magic, the best way to learn magic, where you will really get the most out of it, is you're going to start with learning some core basics. You're going to learn grounding, you're going to learn centering, you're going to learn meditation. You will probably learn the basics of ritual. You'll learn the basics of altars and altar tools. And then at that point, once you've learned, and everyone who practices, no matter what type of witch they are, and in this case, type would be like a specialty. Everyone's going to need that basic set of skills. And then once you get to a point, you will then start looking into what specialties there are. And when I say specialties, some magicians, myself included, would be, let's say, a generalist, or I like to think of myself as a magical jack of all trades. I know a little bit about a lot of things. I may not be an expert on this, but some people do want to have a type. There are people who are kitchen witches, and their magic is in the kitchen. It is with food. That is what they are really good at. That is what they specialize in. That's what they study. Or you may have green witches who do gardening and outdoor stuff. You may have sea witches, or you may have witches who specialize in one, or the elements are one specific element, or you'll have ones that specialize in divination. Maybe it's all forms of divination, maybe it's one, or you'll have some that specialize in this or that or the other thing. And this is the type. There's nothing wrong about having a type. But on day one, you don't know what that type is. What type are you on day one? You're a new witch. You need to learn those basics. Because here's the thing. The basics that you learn there, no matter what type you go into later, will still apply. Meditation for a hearth witch versus meditation for a demonologist versus meditation for a ceremonialist versus I really wish I'm drawing a blank. I really wish I had grabbed that book I was thinking earlier, which had a big listing of it, of those types. It's going to be the same meditation, plus or minus a little bit. It's going to be the same. Learn the basics and then figure out a type. And when you do decide to figure out what type of witch you are, give me a second. I'm sorry. I'm going to grab a book. 1 second. All right, I've grabbed 2 books. These are 2 books I reference on a very regular basis. These books are almost never on my bookshelf. Okay, this is the Grimoire for the Apprentice Wizard by Oberon Zale Ravenheart. This is the companion. This is effectively the second volume. I've mentioned these on the show a lot. These are excellent 101 level books. If you want to learn the type of magic, the witchcraft wizardry that he teaches. It's really good. This main book is rarely on my bookshelf. It usually lives on the floor next to my bed because I reference it that often. I have a PDF version on my tablet. I've got one on my phone. I use this book a lot. I don't want to say this book is my Bible. I know witches who do refer to it that way, and I understand why. But speaking of why I reference this book in types, check this out. If you go into here, it starts with him teaching you basics. With just hold on a second. Let me turn off. All right, let me not blur the background. I usually do is just soften out the lines in the green screen, but it's blurring the book now. Okay, he starts off with teaching you basics. Some history of the magic, some basic skills that a lot of people are going to use. Seeing auras, cloaking, shielding, meditation, stuff like that. A lot, again, the basics that every type of witch will have. Then you get later on into, let's see, we get right, where is it? I think it's called Spectrum. Hey, there's a table of contents. Why am I doing this the hard way? You get into the Spectrum, and the Spectrum 2, and then for the most part, this book kind of continues where those 2 Spectrum sections are. And the Spectrum is really those types. Meditation, healing, wart cutting, which is going to be plants, divination, conjury, which I think in this book that is 237, is that what I think it is? Yeah, in this book, conjury is stage magic, performance magic. You know, pick a card, any card, pulling rabbits out of hats, things like that. Alchemy, beast mastery, cosmology. Cosmology asks the question of why is the universe what it is. Cosmology asks why is the universe created. That really gets into a lot of spiritual questions about why the gods or goddess created the universe and the beginnings of the universe. Lore mastery and the dark arts. And then he continues in the companion. He goes further into those specialties again, but also adds life ways, which is, I've actually not read that in a long time. I think that's kind of like just living a magical life. Math magics, that's going to get into a lot of numerology and number magic, ceremonial magic, stuff like that. Those are specialties, and the reason I like these books, and the whole reason I grabbed these books to start with, and I apologize, I do get off topic here. The reason I like these books is because once you learn the basics, which is the first about half of this first book. It then goes into the specialties, the types of witches you could become, which pretty much follows the rest of the book plus most of the second book. And it doesn't go into a lot of details on a lot, but it does introduce you to a large number of types of witches, and once you get an idea of what's out there, you can decide what you want to be. Wrapping this all the way back around, I know I said I was going to make these brief. I apologize. But this is an issue I think a lot of witches do make this mistake. Don't pick what type of witch you are early. And the reasoning for it really is, one, you do need to learn those basics no matter what. And two, let's say you like cooking. So you decide, I'm going to be a kitchen witch. And that's all you ever study is the basics and kitchen witchery. You could find that to be very lightning. You could be quite happy with it. And I'm not going to judge you as to whether that's right. But I do think you should get a book like this, or what's that other book? The big red brick of a book by Silver Ray Wolf. I can't remember the title of it right now. Explore your options is what I'm really getting at. That's why I like these books. Just read about all these other types there are, because maybe you want to be a kitchen witch when you discover that there's something else you could be really good at. You could find even more fulfilling than that one. But if you pick your type early and you pigeonhole yourself into it, then you might miss out on it. And there's also nothing wrong with being a generalist. As I said earlier, I think of myself as a jack of all trades when it comes to magic. I like to know a little bit about a lot of things. Am I expert on any of those? No. Do I want to be an expert on any of those? Probably not. Actually, no, that's not true. There's a few of them I will eventually learn to an expert level. So I get the benefit, I get a little of everything, and I do find that fulfilling. And the nice thing is once you engage with the community on, and I do say Facebook on this case, I think you do get a bit better of a one-on-one, or I don't want to say one-on-one, community interaction than you would on TikTok or Instagram or those ones where it's usually just comments. You can have discussions on Facebook to, I think, a deeper degree. You could find, if you're not an expert on something, make friends with somebody who is. I'm not going to lie. I don't do divination. I've been doing this for 20 years. I can't read tarot. I've tried to learn. I don't have the patience to. I don't know if I just don't have the talent or just the patience or what. I can't do it. I can think of half a dozen friends I could call up, say, hey, I need a reading. And within seconds, the cards will be shuffled and read. I have learned how to use a pendulum. That was pretty easy. That's an easy divination tool, but it is limited to yes and no answers. Whatever works for you. The takeaway is, if you do want to specialize and have a type of witchcraft, that's fine. Don't wait. Or don't pick it immediately. Wait. You might wait a year, you might wait 2 years. I, for years, thought I needed to have a type. In order to stop being a new witch, you had to have a type. And then at some point, fairly recently, and it's been 22 years I've been practicing, and only fairly recently I realized I don't need to have a type. I am a generalist, and I'm happy with being a generalist. I know a bit about a lot of things, and if I do need some knowledge to a very high expert level, I know who to ask. And when you do decide to figure out what type of witch you are, and just as a takeaway here, don't go on the internet and just ask other witches, what type of witch am I? If you don't know, we don't know. Get a book like these. Explore what types are there. There's also websites too. I just have these here. Explore what's out there. Decide what you like. And there's nothing wrong with changing. Maybe you'll come in here and you'll read it and you'll say, oh, this math magic stuff looks cool. Let me learn about numerology and that stuff. And you do it for a while and you say, oh, you know what? I don't like this as much as I thought I would. Let me go ahead and pick something else, and maybe I'll learn astrology or something like that. And you change what type you are. But there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. Don't pigeonhole yourself as something you don't like either. Again, remember, at the end of the day, this is a path. One step builds upon the last. Builds upon the last. We are going somewhere. And we will walk this path for more than one lifetime. Don't be afraid to learn. Experiment. Moving on. I'm sorry, that took a lot longer than I expected to get over that one. But that I did think. I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make. And if you make it and you dig your heels in and you don't realize it's a mistake, it can cause you serious drawbacks later on. Moving on. Going on Facebook, the next mistake I think a lot of pagans make is going on, and it doesn't seem like a mistake when you do it. And it's going on groups like Facebook or social medias or whatever, and just say, I'm new, what should I know? Okay. First off, how new are you? Day one new, and you heard about us yesterday, and now you're asking? Have you learned a little bit, and you're just new, and you need to know what's next? Are you new to some? What do you mean you're new? And also, what path are you following? The advice somebody would receive if you're new to Wicca, or are you new to the Lima, or are you new to the Golden Dawn, or what are you new to? Matters. And even then, let's go back to that very first thing I mentioned, mistake I mentioned. You're going to need to do your own research. You're going to need to be a student, and you will be a student for the rest of your life. I've said for years, the day I don't learn something is the day I die. And even that day, I'll learn something. It's true. I learn something every day. This is a religion where your spiritual growth and your mental growth go together. You will be doing studying. You will be doing hands-on learning. You do have to learn. This is not a religion where somebody's just going to, here's your answers, just follow the script. And we'll get to following the script in a second. If you do find yourself in either an in-person group or an online group, if you need intro-level information, that's fine. It helps if you know at least specifically what you need to know. Hey, I'm new to this. Where should I start learning to meditate? That's a good question. I'm new. What should I know? That's not a good question. That's such a broad question. It's almost unanswerable. And if people tell you to do your own research, they're not being rude. They're not trying to just shove you away. They're teaching you the most basic thing. What do you need to know? You need to learn how to learn. Moving on. I said earlier, I think it was when I was talking about tools, you don't need tools. The magic comes from within. It comes from your intent. It comes from your psyche, your soul, your subconscious, what word you want to have. One of the mistakes that most new witches make, and I'd say even a vast majority make, at least at some point, and it can sabotage you, is simply not believing in your own power. The God, the goddess, the powers that be, the universe, have given us the ability to work magic. Let me say that again. You have been given the ability to work magic. And the first thing you have to do to unlock that ability is just understand that one fact. If you don't believe in your own power, you're going to shut yourself down. That is a hard lesson to learn. I will be completely honest, that it can be a very hard one to learn, especially if you are coming from Judaism and Christianity, the big three, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, which really teach you that you don't have that power. And especially if you come from more conservative lines of those, which really hammer that in. That can take time. And I also said earlier on, when I mentioned don't get reality and TV confused. Magic can be subtle. Magic takes time to work. And people who don't see an immediate response, that can reinforce you're not believing in your own power. So let me tell you this. If you're a new beginner, let me tell you this. You have power. You have the ability to work magic. You may not fully realize it yet. That takes time. That takes studying. That takes practice. But everyone can learn to do this. Okay? Cool. The next mistake that I'm going to go ahead and cover, this video is going longer than I thought. And this is another one that I'd say a lot of people do make. Not just most new witches, but even some experienced witches can actually make a variant of this mistake. For new witches, not learning how to center, focus, and ground. And I'll also add to that visualizing. These are core concepts. When I was talking about picking your type, I said there are certain core concepts that everyone needs to learn, no matter what type of witchcraft you practice. Center, focusing, grounding, and visualization are so fundamental. That's one of the first things you learn. Centering really is getting yourself into a particular meditative state. Just meditating can get you there. Focusing builds on that and being able to block out that outside world, and get yourself focused in on that work, internally, externally, how have you. Grounding, you're going to build. When we work magic, we build energy. That energy is what sends it out into the universe. That our intent uses that energy to send it out into the universe to make the job happen. You've got to get rid of the extra at some point. Grounding, and I know I've covered these. And visualization. Visualization, I really think is an underrated skill, even for experienced practitioners. Let's say you're doing healing magic on your friend's broken arm. Now, obviously, healing magic's not going to just fix it like you see in the movies. No, the doctor's going to do that. The healing magic's going to help speed up the process, make sure it heals better, heals completely, heals in a more desirable way. This isn't Harry Potter, this is a real world. 90% of the work is going to be, a vast majority of the work in fixing your friend's broken arm, it's going to be the doctor. Magic just helps things along. But let's say you're doing healing magic on it. First thing you're going to want to do is you're going to look. Let's say you're there with your friend. You're going to into your working trance. You're going to work in. You're going to focus. You're going to center. You're going to get into that meditative state. And how I've always learned to do healing magic is you'd visualize a blue healing light around the arm. Visualization is important. Again, your intent shapes your magic, and it's the subconscious that does the work. Visualization is sending that messaging to where it needs to go in your subconscious. Some forms of divination, like looking into crystal balls, you need to be able to visualize. And not really the way you think for that one, but visualization is such a key thing. It is very underappreciated. and something I think a lot of people should learn. There's something, and I think I mentioned this in another video. There is, and the easiest way to learn it is, the concept is being able to take your actual physical eyes into a very soft focus. There is something called a 3D dot stereogram. I'm looking at this book to see if I can find it real quickly. Now there's one in here. 3D dot stereograms look like this. Looks like a bunch of static, but if you look at it cross-eyed in a certain way, you'll see an image. What is this one? I forget. Oh, it's a chalice. This is a chalice. If you ever saw the movie Mallrats, the Kevin Smith movie Mallrats, the picture where all the kids kept seeing the boat, but the one guy couldn't, that was a 3D stereogram. You can look them up. The nice thing about those, and this is why I mentioned them, being able to see the 3D dot stereograms, that's cool. But it's that focus, being able to bring your eyes into that type of soft focus when you're looking into a crystal ball. That's how I do it. I get the lighting dim, and I bring my eyes into, I concentrate on the crystal ball, then I move my focus into that soft focus, where it just sort of gets out of focus. I think I'm just focusing on an empty spot in space behind it, and that gets that part of the brain working. Same technique I use when I see auras. If I'm looking at somebody's aura, same way. But centering, grounding, focusing, and visualization are very key, very, very basic 101 level things everyone needs to learn. And I say I also, and I said a moment ago, that I also think a lot of experienced practitioners make the same mistake by forgetting to do it. It's really easy to, once you learn how to meditate, you do it on a regular basis, then you move on, and you just sort of abandon the practice. Well, I already learned that. I want to move on to the next one. You still need the advanced stuff builds on the basics. You can't just abandon the basics. It's real easy to do. And the next mistake that I think a lot of witches make is not learning how to raise energy. At the end of the day, magic is using your intent to perform magic. Raising energy is the oomph to make that happen. Raising energy is a very key thing to most forms of magic. And there's a lot of ways to do it. And it depends on your style, it depends on your tradition, it depends on just the working you're doing. It may just be you can just light candles and use the energy the candles provide, or maybe there'll be ceremonial drumming or dancing or visualization. There's a lot of ways to do it. But it isn't you need to learn. It's another 101 level thing. I said earlier that one of the mistakes that some new witches make is they're not doing the reading, studying before they start looking up spells on the internet, just because they just want to jump to the spells without doing the research to learn the basics first. If you don't learn how to raise energy, which is a basic thing, the spells won't work. Or if they do, it'll be really disappointing how little it works. Yeah. So. Hi, little one. Oh, the cat wandered in. Okay.
Are you done yet?
Hold on. 1 second. Sorry about that. Joys of doing live videos. Okay, sorry. Next thing. Next mistake I think a lot of witches make is following what everyone tells you instead of learning or finding your own personal path. You're going to do research. That research is going to be based on books or websites or videos, and that's going to be based on that person's personal experiences. You're going to learn from them, yes. You are not obligated to follow their path exactly. Learn what they have to teach you, and then build on it to make it your path. By personalizing your path is going to make it more useful, more powerful, and more meaningful to you. This ties into the next mistake, and that's not writing your own spells. It is easy to go online and look up a spell and just do it. Will it work if you know what you're doing? Absolutely. Is writing your own from scratch or taking a pre-existing one and customizing it to you, will it work better? Yes. And these last two tie into the next point. Don't be afraid to experiment. This is a mistake a lot of people do. Is they say, well, the book says I got to do X, Y, and Z. I've got to do it with these herbs, these crystals. If you don't have those herbs, don't have those crystals, or maybe substitutions, or just experiment, tweak things, make it work for you. And experimenting is a key part of learning. And I'm not a super big expert on chaos magic, but a lot of what they do is experimenting. It is based on the concept of experiment. Well, I wouldn't say based on it, but that's a big faction of what they do, is experimenting. And we're getting close to the end of this list, so let's go ahead and wrap this up with the next couple. And this is another one I see a lot of time on a lot of the new beginner witchcraft groups on Facebook. Don't think every little thing in the universe is a sign. I don't know how many times somebody's posted a picture of the pebble on the driveway. I found a thing on my driveway. Is it my curse? Is this a sign from the deity? It's a rock on the end of your driveway. It's a feather on the curb. Not every little thing is some sign of something. And if you're just starting out, the universe probably isn't leaving you that many signs, and if it does, they're pretty obvious, because the powers that be that leave those signs know you're not exactly in a position to be able to interpret all of them. That comes with time. And even then, not everything's a sign. Sometimes a rock on the driveway is just a rock on the driveway. What's it mean? Does it mean you're cursed? Does it mean that blessings are coming? Does it mean that you neighborhood kid dropped a rock on your driveway? Yeah. And building on that one, and this is another one I see a lot on Facebook. Don't automatically think you're cursed. I don't know how many people I see a day saying, I think I have so and so put a curse on me. How do I break this curse? And if you listen to them and talk to them and actually get information from them, that's the key thing. If you can actually get information from them more than just that one introductory blurb, 90% of the time, they're not cursed. Life just sucks. Pro tip, life sucks. More often than not. Not every flat tire you get is a curse. Sometimes it's just a nail in the road. Someday, something bad happens to you. Maybe it's a curse. Probably not. Probably just shitty day. Forget my language. It happens. Did somebody curse you? Probably not. And the last thing I'm going to include, because at 50 minutes, this is an almost hour-long video, so I'm going to wrap this up with this last one. And this builds back on some of the first ones I mentioned. I mentioned earlier on that don't think that all witches abide by the weak read, because not all of us are Wiccan. I'm Wiccan. Not all of them follow the same rules you think they should. Not everyone follows the same rules that you do or that you think they should. So the last one I'm going to do is don't gatekeep. Don't tell people how to practice. There's a few reasons. One, don't tell them they're doing it wrong because they're not doing it how you think they should. Also, because that's not true. It never will be true. Different traditions do things different. Also remember, as you get more advanced, and this is a message I'm saying to those of you who've been there for a while, because these are the ones who do this, I think, the most. Remember, everyone was new at some point. If they're asking a basic level question you think's below you, just remember at some point you probably asked that question years ago when you were new. Everyone was new at some point. Everyone made mistakes. Everyone needed to learn, and everyone needed to learn from those mistakes. Don't gatekeep, and don't make things harder on them. Did you have to learn some lessons the hard way? Yeah, we all have. Can you share what you learned with others so maybe they won't make the same mistakes, and maybe they'll have a little bit easier time? Yes, please do. Don't make other people's paths difficult. Don't gatekeep. This was, as I said, this was a list I put together partly on my own, partly based on suggestions from people on Facebook. Those who gave me suggestions, a million thank yous. I appreciate it. I got such a big response. I expected like 5 or 6 responses, not the 100 plus I did get. And even as somebody who has been practicing for 22 years, some of the mistakes that they said that new witches make, I'm like, oh wait, I still like that one. Hey, look, I learned. We all do. Yeah. So, hopefully you won't make these mistakes, or at least maybe you'll learn a little something from this list. Maybe it'll help you out. I hope it does. Take care. Stay healthy. May blessed be. And may you check out my website at wiccan.pw. You can also subscribe to me on Facebook. Just search for the Temple of the Starry Sky. Take care.